Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again, back with more neighbor stories. In this video, a Karen neighbor decided to get a disabled veteran towed from a legal handicap parking spot. This was a massive mistake. Here is what happened. The title story starts like this. So this is a story from a good few years ago. I never would have spoken about it like this, but my therapist said it might be a good idea as it seems stuck in my mind. The gist of the story is this. I got shot in the leg while on a military tour. Our squad was ambushed, and to be honest, I got out lightly with just one shot. The injury caused me to have to amputate my leg as the bullet wound got infected. Of course, I was devastated, and it meant I had to resign from the military. After almost half a year limping from one hospital and rehabilitation center to the next one, I finally moved back home. Me and my neighbor had never really spoken beyond a few words in the morning, but I knew from the things that he posted on Facebook that he was quite a pacifist, opposing war and everything it stood for, so I was not surprised that he had made no effort to get to know me. However, not long after my return, he began being a more prominent figure in my life, and not in a good way. Due to my injury being sustained during duty, the government paid for my home to be fitted with some assistance and accessibility features so I could get around without crutches and a wheelchair all the time. Bars were added to my front steps and all over my house. It was great. I could get about easily, and it made me feel less down about my situation. From the outside, you could tell that clearly someone with a disability lived here. I was not mad at this. I have wanted people to know that I'd been protecting their country. I chose to wear my injury as a medal. The change to my home attracting my neighbor who came knocking the day the rails outside my home went up. "What is all this?" he asked once I'd opened the door. "I was shot in the leg. I need some rails to get around better." I replied thinking he was just awkwardly trying to show support. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I think by rails, OP actually means a wheelchair ramp or something like that. Otherwise, I'm not 100% sure what OP is talking about. Anyway, yeah, I heard. Don't think a big military lad like yourself would need all this junk though. I got the hint of mockery, but again, I thought maybe he just didn't know what to say about the situation. Ha, well, not anymore with only one leg. I tried to laugh off the tense conversation. Ha, well, that's what a war will do to people. And I bet you think you've done a whole lot of good out there, huh? Well, I did shoot the guy who shot me before he could kill my friend, if that's what you mean. I replied, realizing this conversation was taking a turn. Ah, so you admit you're a murderer, huh? "I'm sorry, can I help you with something?" I asked, getting annoyed by the interaction about my rather traumatic experience. "Next you'll be parking in disabled spots, huh?" he muttered, shaking his head and turning to walk away. Yeah, obviously. I don't know what else he'd expect me to do. And before you think, how can you drive? I have an automatic car and only really need one foot for it. It took a bit of getting used to it again, as I'm used to using just both my legs, but I managed to do it. I don't know what I would do if I couldn't drive anymore. For the next few weeks, I saw my neighbor walking past my house and glaring through my windows at me. I hadn't had a clue what his sudden deal was. It was like he was upset that I got injured during the war. If anything, I thought he'd be sympathetic. Surely getting injured during the war is one of the reasons that he doesn't like war to begin with, and as such would think my situation helped his cause. "Oh look, the veteran is here," I remember my neighbor saying as I walked into church one Sunday. The people around him looked at him as if he was out of his mind, clearly picking up on the notes of mockery that laced his tone. I wheeled past him with my head down, feeling shame prick my neck as I felt countless pairs of eyes follow me. "Ignore him," one of my friends said, coming up beside me. If we were ever in the same space together, he always had something to say. Sometimes it was just laughing, other times it was something about the alterations made to my house, claiming I didn't deserve them or something. "Hey!" he shouted one day as I stepped out of my house. He was sat on my lawn in a lawn chair. "What are you doing on my property?" I asked angrily, holding onto the rails either side of me. He shrugged, lifting his beer up at me. "Just thought I would come say hi." "Okay, well, please kindly leave now." "Why would I?" "Because I don't want you squatting on my land." "Who do you think you are?" he asked, standing up and throwing his bottle to the side, causing it to smash against the pavement. Great. "What's your problem with me, man?" "My problem?" He began to walk over to me, swaying as if he had more than just that one bottle, which he probably had. "You think you're all high and mighty with your fancy veteran title, don't you?" "I've never once called myself a veteran, it's just what I am." "See, there it is. Expect everyone to know of your amazing deeds, and those deeds where you shot a man in cold blood." I did what I had to. I wished I'd never told him about that. Whatever. He stood there for a minute, having stopped at the foot of my stairs, holding the rails and looking at them. He began shaking them hard. Stop that, I demanded, worried he might break them. It was also making it much harder to hold on. He just smiled at me and carried on. Eventually, one of my other neighbors came over and had a go at him, which I was grateful for. But I felt shame wash over me. I felt I couldn't fight my own battles anymore. He left in a huff, sticking up his finger at me. I thanked my other neighbor and went over to my car to continue on what I was doing. I drove to the supermarket, parked up and headed inside. Only once I left I noticed that my car was no longer there. I had parked in the handicapped spot and wondered if maybe I'd forgotten to put my badge on the window, but I was certain that I did. Going back inside, I told the manager the situation, and he said they would never have a car towed even if I had forgotten the badge. He kindly took me into his office while he pulled up CCTV, where we watched a tow truck towed my car. The manager said he recognized that car as one of his employees who has a towing business on the side and called him in. You won't believe who walked through the door half an hour later. Yep, it was my neighbor. No way, I muttered, shaking my head at the audacity of this man. You towed this man's car? The manager asked. I would not call him a man, he's just some war scum who now gets to reap all the benefits of being handicapped. My neighbor replied straight into fury. Benefits? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You think losing a leg brings me benefits? The manager then started berating his employee, going fully in. Turns out, his wife also lost her leg, and so he must have felt more deeply affected by the situation. You are fired, the manager screamed at him. My neighbor turned his head towards me, and I swear I saw a world of rage building behind his eyes. This is all your fault, he spat in my direction. I know I should have gone to the police or done something about this obvious hate crime. The manager even suggested I do so and would give a statement. I didn't though, and I still felt cowardly for not being able to sort out my own battles. Anyway, I did manage to get my car back. He hadn't towed it to any car lot, just a couple miles down the road to another car park. To my luck, my neighbor ended up being evicted for not paying his rent the next month. He hadn't been able to find another job in time. I can't say I was not pleased. He did cuss me out as he left and dumped a mountain of garbage onto my lawn. Other neighbors came and helped me clear it up, which I was thankful for. I did not see him ever again after that, but his words and actions against me have really left a bit of a scar on my confidence. I looked him up the other day. He still posts on Facebook, does not have a job, lost his tow truck, and is living in a shoddy council flat that he complains about religiously. I hope he regrets what he did, or at least has changed his opinions on us veterans. And yeah, Ripe Stars, as we all know, never mess with a veteran. You will deeply regret it. And apparently karma will also bite you in the ass. The next one is titled, Car was mistakenly towed. So I own a condo that I'm remodeling before renting it out again. The condo has 2 numbered parking spaces in an oversized driveway. My in-laws have been staying with us for the holidays, so we parked one of our cars, a black Land Cruiser, at the condo 2 weeks ago. Annoyingly, there was a dark red Toyota 4Runner illegally parked there. We called the tow company contracted to our property and gave them the make, model, color, plate number and the number of the spot, and they said they would tow the car. We parked our Land Cruiser in our other parking spot and went home. Last night, I went to get the car and it was gone. I reported it stolen. Quite annoyingly, the red 4Runner was still there. While I was on the phone talking to the police, my wife called the tow company to confirm that they towed the car I called about 2 weeks ago. They said they did and said it was still there. They towed my car. They towed the black Land Cruiser parked in spot number 2 instead of the red 4Runner parked in spot number 1. They did not even bother to check the plates or the model or the color. At the lot they said that in order to release my car, I would have to pay the tow fees and the 2-week storage fee before they would release my car. The manager sort of acknowledged that they made an error, but kept on saying that it was company policy for the fee to be paid before a release. He said they'd be willing to waive the tow fee as it was their error, but I'm still responsible for the storage fees, which is over $1,000. The cops said that this was a civil matter and they could not intervene. What are my options here? Is there any legal action that I can do to get my car back today without paying $1,000? They screwed up, not me. I got the money, but my life is so crazy that I don't really have time to sue in small claims court and deal with that hassle, plus trying to collect if I win. They said if I didn't pay today, the daily fee continues to accrue. If I don't pick it up today, is there a way to stop them from continuing to charge their daily storage fee as they admitted the car was towed in error? The lot has no gate. Can I just get it in my truck and drive it away? They said that I'd be arrested for car theft if I did. Comments. And basically there was one guy who didn't understand how this is not theft, and then another Redditor explained, well, in this case the business had a contract that included permission to take cars from a lot and licensing that gives them permission to take and hold cars from the state. They were asked to take a car from a lot they were authorized to and did so. There's nothing criminal about that. There was no intent to break the law, and simply having the car in the lot is not a crime because they were authorized to do so. The state does not have a dog in the fight, no one intentionally did anything that violates a law, the owner of the car is being wronged and a tort has been committed by the tow lot. What's the difference? Well, a tort comes from simple negligence that causes another harm. Many things are both a tort and a crime, but due to the licensing and contractual authorizations in this case, it's not a crime. It's not stealing to move a thing that you're permitted to move from one place to another, it is stealing though to move a thing that you're not authorized to move. The police are not triers of fact, they don't know who is right and wrong, and bringing an implicit threat of force into arguments is not a good way to bury them once and for all. So rather than making a guy with a gun decide on the spot, we have a system that keeps the police sidelined in these cases and makes people resolve these disputes civilly. And by that, I mean in court. They admitted guilt, which makes this case pretty much a slam dunk, but asking the police to pick sides in every case like this is just more trouble than it's worth. Update to the story, I grudgingly paid the $1,000 and picked up my car that day. I filed suit in small claims court against the business and owner before Christmas. This morning I served him at his office. Actually, my neighbor's home from college daughter served him. She was surprisingly smooth doing it. I was standing in line behind her when she did it. The owner didn't know me as it was a different employee who was at the office when I was last there. I explained why I was suing him and he was either really annoyed or didn't seem to care much. It was hard to tell. Before leaving, I handed him a letter from our condo board, of which I'm a member, informing that when his contract expires at the end of February, it was not gonna be renewed. It was surprisingly easy to convince my fellow board members to not renew his contract, as they've heard similar complaints from other owners and guests. About an hour ago, he called me, from the number on my original request to tow, to tell me that his employee mistakenly charged me the storage fees and should have just given me my car. Well, that was a lie, because the manager and employee called the owner when I was originally there and asked him, and it was the owner himself who told him to waive the tow fees but still charged the storage fees. And well, I told him as much. He said his employee must have misunderstood and apologized, which I believed not at all. He then offered to refund the money if I agreed to renew his contract with the property. I said that this was not gonna be a quid pro quo and that he should do what he thought was right. I told him that if he refunded the $1,000 plus the filing fee, that I'd drop the lawsuit. If he didn't, I would let the court decide. As to his contract, I said that we were meeting officially next week to discuss new tow contracts and that his company would be free to offer his services again. I didn't tell him that there was no way that we were going to give him another contract. And the next one is titled Roadblock Revenge. I was driving through my neighborhood. It was developed in the 1940s and has narrow streets and a lot of on-street parking, and I encounter a delivery truck with its lift gate extended, parked crooked across the road, blocking the flow of traffic. The way the truck was positioned, if the driver had pulled forward another 3 feet, they could have allowed for the passage of traffic. As I pull up, I see the 2 delivery men using a dolly to move a refrigerator into the house. I signal to them and ask if they can pull forward a couple feet to allow me and others to pass. The driver signals back to me with the 1-finger salute and continues to move the fridge into the house. I wait until they are inside and the storm door closes. I jump into the cab and the truck had been left running and pull the truck forward the few feet necessary. As I exit, I turn the truck off, remove the key, single key tiny paper fob, and throw the key into the across the street neighbor's slot, a few houses down with a terribly unkept yard. As I'm pulling away, the delivery guys come back out of the house and I give them my best Princess Diana wave, followed by my own 1-finger salute, and kept on driving. living. And yeah, ripe stars, honestly, there are probably few things in life that are as infuriating as the stupid parking of others. And you know, weirdly enough, where I live here in this small neighborhood, there aren't really any parking issues anywhere in the neighborhood except the houses right next to me. For some reason, these people felt like they have to stuff their driveway full with all sorts of crap and then simply park their cars in front of their houses, which is not really allowed according to the neighborhood rules. But as I told you guys before, we do have sort of an HOA here in the neighborhood, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they don't really enforce the rules. So basically, these people just continue parking like crap, and there's nothing really we can do against them. But then again, these neighbors are not really nightmare neighbors or anything, I kind of like them, so it's not too bad. And the next one is titled, Never Treat Me Unfairly. At my last company, I was working as a marketing executive. The team included myself and a senior marketing executive. As time went on, I began to take on more responsibilities to the point that I was doing more than the senior in the team, which they admitted. I spoke to my manager about what I need to get to a senior position. She gave me goals and a timeline. I hit those targets and she would move the goalposts. She did this 2 more times. All the while, I was using my skills to reduce costs and improve the projects I was working on. Specifically, I had started to design everything myself instead of using the expensive design agency. I was saving the company around £45,000 per year. I finally set another meeting with my manager to discuss a promotion. I showed her how I had increased the profit margins of all my projects and all the extra work I'd been doing. Her response was, "Just because you make things nice and do extra work does not entitle you to a promotion." I sat there shocked while she said, "But don't worry, you will get there," and then ended the meeting. She had led me on about a promotion for 2 years. Here is where I started my malicious compliance. So I stopped doing anything outside my job description, which included all the design work. Everything went to an agency. The whole team relied on my design work, but when I told them that I was stopping, they were also quite happy to start using the expensive agency. It was not until our next quarterly meeting that my manager noticed our profits per project had harshly dropped. When she questioned why we were spending so much, I said, as design is out of my remit, we had to use an agency. She was livid as she had to present the stats to the CEO that week, who ended up yelling at her in front of the directors. She tried to give me an official warning for sabotaging the team, but a talk with HR cleared that away when they realized it was not part of my role. She then told me that I had to sign a new contract with an updated job description. I declined that too. Eventually, she asked me what it would take to get me to continue running my projects like I used to, and I mentioned the job title and salary increase. She begrudgingly accepted. I was worried about her being hostile, but then the pandemic hit and the lady was made redundant. I stayed for a further 2 years before finally moving to a much better place at the start of this year. And as of today, her LinkedIn continues to show that she is unemployed. And the next one is a revenge story. I spent 2 years working for a particular boss who I will call Dan. Dan was, and almost certainly still is, the most unacceptable human being I've ever had the displeasure of encountering. He was a compulsive liar, a narcissist, short-tempered, unethical, unreasonable, unintelligent, and abusive. I once witnessed him spend half an hour shouting at a salesman for wearing shoes that Dan did not approve of. Not inappropriate shoes, mind you, but just ones that Dan did not like. The salesman in question could have gone home and changed his shoes in the time that Dan spent cursing him out and belittling him. He also sold a client second-hand computers, claiming that they were new and priced as new ones. This man not only assaulted me, but verbally and emotionally abused me for the better part of 2 years and did everything in his power to keep me under his thumb. He constantly micromanaged me to the point of just dictating to me what I should write in an email to a client. If it was not done exactly his way, it was not correct. I had to argue with him just to get a damn sick day, even though I'm legally entitled to it. I was woefully underpaid and on call 24/7. This made it difficult for me to find other employment and is one of the reasons that I stayed as long as I did. He basically made my life absolutely miserable and I developed a bit of a drinking problem as a result. I recently watched a presentation on domestic violence and his behavior is a textbook case of what DV abusers do. I could go on and on about the things that this man did to be the biggest a-hole he could be, but this is pro-revenge and not bad bosses, so I will get to the story. And well, one day, Dan and I had a disagreement about something. I was right and I had the emails to prove it, and I was frankly fed up with his BS. I told him I would not be going to work because I was taking a sick day. He proceeded to shove me down to the ground. He is a big guy, probably one of the reasons that he's gotten away with being the human garbage he is for so long, and starts trying to strangle me. I was able to fend him off and escape, and after I did, I filed a police report. There were no witnesses, so that was going to go nowhere. He actually had one of his other subordinates make a claim that the alleged assault did not happen. Said subordinate was not there at the time, so it was a false report. I naturally told everyone I knew and all his clients that contacted me afterwards, I was their primary IT support, so quite a few of them had my personal number, that I had filed a police report against him for assault. I specifically said it that way because, unlike simply claiming that he assaulted me, telling people I filed a report was unarguably true and not slanderous. A lot of his clients were already not happy with the services he provided, internet and PBX, so that certainly turned a lot of them off of renewing their contracts. A very close family friend of mine, Carol, was naturally one of the first to hear about the assault. I left the country about a month later in search of better opportunities, but my friend remained there and became the chairman of the board of trustees for the body corporate of the neighborhood where Dan lived. A body corporate is basically like an HOA, but with different laws governing them. She set her sights on making his life hell. Dan had a broken down car that had been broken down for over a year at that point, and he never had the money to fix it because he's a bad businessman who never seemed to realize that his business model had really tiny profit margins. And basically the rules of the neighborhood were changed to force broken down cars to be towed away. If the owner did not tow it, the body corporate would and charge the owner, and then also fine them. So Dan was fined a few times, not small amounts either, and when he was fined he did what he always does when things don't go his way, which is throw a tantrum while having no leg to stand on. The tantrum in this case was several expletive-filled emails to the body corporate, which is just a great way to endear yourself to someone who already hates you, which got him fined again for breaking the conduct code. This, combined with the loss of revenue for his business, has led to him not having any substantial income for over half a year now. He has no car nor the money to buy one, several of his big clients are definitely not gonna renew contracts with him, and he appears to no longer have any staff in his employ. Nobody's seen anyone coming to his house in months now, and the body corporate is pressuring his landlord to evict him. He is well and truly screwed. I'm living happily in another country now and got an awesome job that pays 20 times what working for him did. And yes, I'm not kidding, really 20 times more money. That is how little I made under him. And the next one is another fantastic revenge story. And by the way, if you ever had the displeasure of having to work for an awful boss, and in case you got any revenge on them, please feel free to share your story in the comments. I would love to hear it. So my fiancé and I have a date every Thursday night to take advantage of our mutual days off. This particular night we decided to go out to eat at a popular restaurant with a red pepper as their logo and a catchy old advert about baby back ribs. And guys, if you know which kind of restaurant OP is talking about, then please let me know in the comments. Since I'm not from the US, I have honestly no clue. Anyway, the place is not very crowded, it being a Thursday night, so we get seats and service quickly. Our drink order is taken by a sweet friendly waitress who we will call Maggie. Maggie is cheerful, engaging, and has a Doctor Who lanyard around her neck. Instant sympathy bonus, by the way. She and I share a few squeeze about the Doctor and Potter and general fandom for a minute or two before she heads off to get our drinks. Shortly after she brings us our drinks, the waiter comes by. Let's christen him Walter. So Walter proceeds to stand behind my fiancé. He and I are in a booth facing each other and speak only to me as he claims that this table is actually his and that Maggie is just a trainee, all the while with a creepy ass smile on his face. We find this a bit odd and annoying, but whatever, he heads off and we chat for another few minutes until Maggie returns to take our order. Several minutes later, Walter comes back, stands with his back to my fiancé, and asks if I need anything, completely ignoring my fiancé. Now we are getting really annoyed, we tell him we are fine and off he goes. Then Maggie brings us our food, chats for a few seconds, leaves, and then immediately returns with refills on our almost empty drinks. She is the perfect waitress. However, we are now in a dilemma. If we leave a tip, it will go to Walter, just to be sure we confirm this with Maggie, but we don't want to give Maggie out of her well-earned tip. So we call over a waitress that is working a different section of tables and ask her to get the manager. When he arrives at our table, we tell him that Maggie has been an excellent server and we would like to leave her a nice tip for her efforts, but Walter has told us that this table is his and has done absolutely F all otherwise. Unless you count ignoring the other occupant of the table. The manager thanks us and goes over to the computer where they input the diner orders and changes the listed server of the table to Maggie. We now have no problem leaving a 50% tip, $20 on a $40 meal, and shoot smirks at a frowning Walter being reamed out by the manager as we leave. Next time, don't be a douchebag and make the trainee do all the work for none of the profits. Also, when there's two people at a table, talk to both of them. And yeah guys, I gotta say, I absolutely love this story. I am so glad that Walter didn't get anything for his terrible behavior. I absolutely hate it when people in businesses crap on trainees, especially because they often do work that others don't want to do. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.